You're watching Calf Kick Sports Podcast.
Good afternoon, folks, and thanks for joining us. This is the Calf Kick Sports Podcast. My name is Tim Wheaton, joined as always by Ash. And today we have a special guest joining us. She is the Flex Fighting Amateur Strawweight Champion, Mariah Castro. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you guys for reaching out.
Oh yeah, we're happy to have you on. So let me ask you, you are sponsored by Mom's Basement MMA, a gentleman that we worked with before, Tyler. Now he kind of plays online, like he's kind of a gruff, angry jerk. And then when you speak to him in person, you realize like, oh yeah, you're still a gruff, angry jerk. How do you deal with working with Tyler?
You know what? Honestly, it was cool because we did the interview and then we just kind of kept in contact and we actually have a lot in common. You know, he's committed to his opinions and so am I, and we have that in common. Okay. So obviously, you know, things are a little different on his podcast, but you know, he's actually a really relatable guy and he's super, super cool. I tell him all the time, like, I appreciate that, you know, he sees potential because, you know, what's important to me is kind of like showing potential and evolution and things like that. So, you know, it's easy to get lost in the crowd, you know, especially in an amateur circuit where nobody's really paying attention. And the attention that he brings to the amateur circuit, you know, is, you know, nobody else is really doing it as much as he is. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the best to do it, isn't it? Like, I really like the fact that he brings that spotlight to people. He reaches out to people. You know, he's not like emphasizing, you know, kind of really focused on getting the big names. You know, he doesn't care about that. It's just all about homegrown talent, really, which is great. But yeah, moving on to kind of my first question with you. I mean, you know, what was your main motivation into getting fighting? It's not your, you know, orthodox kind of career, is it?
Well, you know what? When I was younger, I just played so many sports, like every sport, and I was just naturally athletic, but nothing really stuck with me. I just couldn't see like a purpose in it. And then, you know, just gradually, like I started, you know, karate when I was really young, and then I got into jujitsu. For a while, I had stopped, and then I got back into it knowing that I wanted to do MMA. Now, like at first, it was like really hard at the time to find a place where they could kind of make me a little more well-rounded. You know, a lot of the places were just jujitsu. They didn't really have MMA programs. And, you know, so through the grapevine, I found the gym that I'm at now. I've been there going on 7 years. So I trained there for 4 years before I even took an amateur fight. I just knew like I wanted to do combat sports, and it was something that came more natural to me. It's, you know, I just know that I can take it to a level that's going to kind of elevate women's MMA. And that's like something that's important to me, kind of like raising the bar for women's MMA.
Well, it's so impressive, and I'm a little bit proud. Sometimes we're proud of the MMA community, and sometimes not so much. But with women's MMA, I feel like that's such a good point of the MMA community, because other sports like the WNBA or women's NHL or anything like that, women don't get the same star power or shine. Even in women's boxing, it's the same sort of thing. There's amazing women's boxers who get absolutely no attention, but it is amazing in MMA that there was such a big influence from people like Gina Carano and Ronda Rousey, that now there's like women fights headlining in Thailand and places like this. Like it's an amazing thing to see. Where do you want to see yourself in 5 years in relation to women's MMA? And what was your biggest influence was there someone who inspired you in women's MMA?
Absolutely. You know, I was always a really big fan of, you know, Ronda Rousey and watching UFC in general when I was younger, you know, about like '09, you know, before I even started training. So it's funny how people kind of like talk down on Ronda like a lot, but she kind of made all of this possible. So in a way, you just have to respect that. So she was definitely an inspiration. I would say Rose Namajunas is a huge inspiration to me. I think she's the most technical, you know, straw weight that there is, and well-rounded, you know. So I definitely always give those two people the credit they deserve. And it's, yeah, in the last couple of years, women's MMA has picked up, which is awesome. You know, so in 5 years, say I see myself making it to the UFC, and, you know, obviously I'm a bit small, but I'm I'm going to put on a lot, you know, of muscle recently, trying to do some more lifting and things like that, because there's no 105 in the UFC. So,
Yeah. So that actually leads me to my next question. So there is what they're looking to develop a 105 division in the UFC. So I watched, your interview with Tyler. You mentioned the most you've cut is down to 110. Would you ever go down to atomweight and potentially fight in the UFC if that opportunity ever arises?
Listen, even if it's not the UFC, if I get a good opportunity, right, to fight at 105 and the pay is pretty good, then yes, I'm absolutely going to do that. I can't, and a lot of people know that you can't put all your eggs in one basket. Like everybody would love to be in the UFC, and that's the ultimate goal. But along the way, if I have to go to organizations where I have to fight 105, do catch weights, if that's the case, then I will. And if they did open up atom weight in the UFC, I would love to do that. If they do, if they don't do it, and I'm happy to go at strawweight. I really think that I can hang with the strawweights as well.
Yeah, strawweight's a really good division, especially at the top. There's some extreme talents there. Atomweight worldwide has some absolutely amazing talent, like the entire top 10 at atomweight. So if you're getting into a one championship down the line or something like that, or Ryzen has a really good one, you can make it out there. That's some good stuff.
Absolutely.
Would you want to go overseas and fight, or are you staying in stateside?
If I had a really good opportunity to go, overseas and do like, one championship, I would definitely do that. That would be a cool experience overall. Traveling is something that I look forward to, when I am, pro and fighting and things like that. So I hope to do just one more amateur fight. That's what we're looking for. One more final go, and then we'll go pro after that. So, it's difficult to find fights anyway. So the likelihood is that I'm going to have to travel. So we've already spoken about that as well. Like that's the likely possibility that even if it's out of the country, different states, whatever the case may be, but I get the call and I'll go, that'll be fun.
Can it be like a little bit frustrating almost, like fighting at, as an amateur in a way, because obviously you're training elbows. I mean, this is what I've had with, with other amateurs, they train elbows. It's not something you can use. You can't use all your weapons in an amateur fight. Is it a little bit frustrating that you kind of just want to get your first pro fight under your belt?
Yeah, it is frustrating having the limited rule set. I mean, the only limits that I've had are really like knees to the face and yes, the elbows, which are like a really big game changer. And having to, restrain yourself to like in the back of your mind after, going through camps, and you're training like a pro, and most of my training partners are professionals. So I don't have them do a limited rule set in training just because I'm an amateur. So it does get a little frustrating, and I do feel like a lot of fights could go differently if I didn't have a limited rule set. In addition to that, having 3-minute rounds, that also is super frustrating for me. I'm a person that like I come on stronger later in the fight. So, in 9 minutes, that's when people start to really wear out, so the fight kind of like over at that point. And I'm like, what? We're just kind of getting warmed up,
It can be frustrating with ground and pound as well. I was just thinking, like, when you're on top and you got full mount, you can't start throwing elbows, man. You literally just gotta start punching like this, and it's almost like it's a lot more effective if you just if you could just do short elbows, like in your on top mount. That must be extremely frustrating, and that must be. I'm just assuming that must be like the biggest frustration of being an amateur, if you're like good on the ground, that is.
Yeah, that. Being on top, not being able to throw elbows, and then if you're on bottom and somebody on top is just kind of stalling and they're laying down kind of on you, and you can't throw elbows there, like in pro MMA, you're not as safe to kind of lay on the chest and rest there, because people will kind of chip you away with elbows. You might get cut, something like that. So it kind of forces you more to work and posture, and not just kind of lay and pray. That's the truth. You can stall a lot more in amateur MMA than you can in pro MMA. You get away with more things for sure.
Absolutely.
No, that's a good answer too. That it's gonna be fun to see you in your pro debut, and you're just gonna be focusing elbows the whole time. Like that's it. No other strikes even exist now.
I love, I love the knees too. Like elbows going into the clinch and exiting the clinch are my favorite, because I think that's where people least expect it. Those two moments, even hitting off the break, just, that's when people are kind of least prepared. And knees, I love to throw knees. So I'm excited to be able to actually knee someone in the face.
So
But I am.
this is great. But look, Mariah, if we were hanging out, you can knee me in the head if you want. I will do that for you.
I felt so bad because in times like I have done it accidentally in training, but then I'm like in the back of my head, I'm like, this is gonna feel so good when it's intentional. Like when it's in the cage and it's intentional, like
Accidentally. No, I hear you. Accidentally.
hey, it happens.
Changing gears a bit. So you actually reminded me of something, and I don't think I've ever asked this to any guest, yeah. So bear with me if it comes out a bit rusty. But in Pride, yeah, they used to do because you mentioned lay and pray, and it just reminded me of Pride immediately. Pride FC. So they used to give yellow cards, yeah, to people that would just kind of just lay and pray and kind of just prolong the action a little bit. Do you think that needs to make a comeback in some promotions, the yellow card rule?
So what's funny is like, I don't know how people did lay and pray in Pride, because you can do grounded knees and all types of crazy stuff in Pride FC. So that's like, I would never even wanna, but now I just think, like in jiu-jitsu competitions, you get penalties for stalling, say, so why not just kind of, you get like a warning or like a penalty, and then if you're not, active, and then they'll stand you up, you just lose the position, like that's it. That's just kind of, stalling it's rough, because then you're leaving it up in the air for yourself as well, like being in those neutral positions where like you're just both clinched up and nothing is happening. So it's like, who do you give that round to, and things like that. And then we like to complain about the judging. So from that aspect, I've had a couple of decisions that I lost. Like one decision I lost, I felt that I won, but I left it to them in the sense that in the second round, it was a toss up, so it's like, how mad can I be if one of the rounds was a toss up, so it just, it happens that way, so sometimes the judges are way off, but in other cases, if you kind of leave it to, up in the air in a coin toss, you can't really be too mad. But definitely, the stalling, you kind of got to warn them, or they lose the position.
Yeah, come on. That should definitely be a thing, man. Go for it, Tim.
And it's frustrating with judges, like, because it seems like you don't have judges who really understand the sport, because often we're not talking about close rounds. Like, we're talking about, sometimes it's very obvious rounds that we don't understand what they're seeing, but it feels like there's a disconnect. But I wanted to ask you, were you a big Pride FC fan? Like, you know a ton about Pride fighting.
Not a crazy Pride FC fan, but I did watch a lot of the classic fights. I just feel like, if you're a UFC Fight Pass member, you just have a habit of just getting lost in like a whole bunch of fights, like the early UFC, just like kind of like a little history lesson, just to see like how far it's come. And it's crazy how far the sport has come, and it's funny because like there's a lot happened in a short amount of time. So like, it's still a new sport. It's still just caught on and became, big, but it feels like it's been like a long time, because so much has happened to having the rules that we have now,
100%. I mean, to fully, no holds barred, or NHB as it used to be called back in the day, to what it is now, it's insane. And it's actually a great time to just try and be an MMA historian, because there's not that much history. If you ever want to kind of start from scratch, yeah, you're not really looking through years and years of kind of footage. If you try and be a boxing historian, good luck, man. That's like over 170 years or something. So yeah, it's a good time to try and get in and be a historian in some ways. But yeah, I mean, just moving forward a little bit, kind of changing gears. Obviously, you have really hard training camps. Do you veg out to anything after? Like, how do you relax, or is fighting something that's always on your mind?
Well, generally, I like to keep active. So like most of the time that I've been fighting has been every 2 months I take a fight, or every 3 months I take a fight. If I have the luxury of doing that. Right now, I'm kind of waiting on confirmation for something. So it is like really always on my mind, especially being that I'm excited to make my pro debut. I just feel like it's so long awaited. So I'm excited about that. But I'm also not like, in like this crazy rush where, I like to get all the experience that I can, take advantage of that, at the end of the day, nobody's going to go back and care about your amateur record. You're still 0-0, just like everybody else. So, you know, in the meantime, like I'm always in shape. I'm always training, you know, kind of thing. But I do also help other people out with their camps. So, you know, I just kind of in between, I have a short amount of time where I can kind of eat and enjoy things before I'm already like thinking about another fight. I was hoping for March this time, you know, just like 3 months from my last one. But it's looking more like April, which, you know, it's kind of rough to wait because it's easy to get a little bit lazier, and you know your diet is not so good and stuff like that. But you know, it's always on my mind basically.
I never relax. I'm always ready for a fight. This is you.
Pretty much. Like I like to stay active because you know what, having that year layoff when COVID first hit, because COVID like hit a month after my one fight with Sandy Chang, and then I had a year where I wasn't fighting, and that was like the worst time ever because you know you're thinking like, is ring rust real and things like that. So to have that in your mind, that doubt where you're like, you haven't fought in a year, like what's it gonna be like? I don't like that. You know, I like to kind of just be in the mix all the time.
So you spent your life, you started in karate when you were younger, going into jiu-jitsu. You're kind of the person who lives at the gym. When you're at home, you're watching UFC Fight Pass. You obviously love fighting. And when I was talking, we were speaking to Frank Shamrock a while ago, and something that he said really stuck with me is that he, as a young man, found peace in the cage. He found peace in fighting, and it seems like an oxymoron. Do you relate to that idea at all?
Yeah, I think I do because you know, you talk to a lot of people and they have different views on like how they feel when they fight. To me, it feels like it's kind of euphoric. I block, like, you know, some people have performance anxiety, but I feel like I just block out the entire crowd and I forget people are watching. You know what I mean? I almost treat it like it's this sparring session and I'm having a good time. And I think that the composure is like a huge part of my strategy when I fight, and what helps me with my cardio when I fight and things like that is that composure, staying relaxed and just kind of, you know, doing my thing. That's really what it comes down to. I enjoy fighting. There are people that might enjoy just the win and they just want to get through the fight and win, you know, but I feel like I enjoy every minute of the fight, you know, and I've been in bad positions in fights and I'm like, you know what, good takedown. And then, you know, get back to it. I'm trying to get back up. And then in the next round, I'm trying to, you know, do what I have to do. Like, it's fun. It's really a good time, honestly.
How do you feel before the fight? Because obviously, you know, you find that peace within fighting when you're in the cage. But do you ever go through, because we asked this to everyone, do you go through some anxiety through the cage? And we've got varying responses. Sam Alvey goes, I'm just smiling, man. Like, you know, this is nothing to me. It's just a fight, man. Well, why do people overthink it? But then there's other people that go, yeah, man, this is scary. Like, but when I'm in the cage, I've got no choice but to be like, yeah, let's fucking go. Where do you stand on that?
So all of what you said, I do relate to. So like there are different perspectives that you're going to have. And to some degree, I relate to all of those. So it's like, you know, the anxiety, the leading up to the fight. Yeah, there is anxiety, but I feel like if you have a good training camp, you know, if you know that you did what you were supposed to do, that really helps like alleviate, you know, some of that anxiety that you have. It helps that, you know, I've always had training partners that are, you know, levels above me and things like that. So I'm like, you know, I feel more confident as an amateur going into an amateur fight where I'm like, you know, I'm training with these pros, these, you know, high level strikers and grapplers, things like that, you know, even guys like flyweight guys, things like that. So that helps too. But I always say, like, I hate the leading up. Like, there is anxiety leading up to it. I wish I could just fast forward to the fight. Like that's, you know, that's what I feel like. I wish I could just fast forward to the fight. You know, that's because that's where I start to feel like at ease, is like when I'm walking out, just when I'm walking out. As soon as your walkout song plays and you walk out, that's it. It's on. Like, you know, no more anxiety. There's no thinking. It's let's go. I'm going to do my thing.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think like you're getting in a fist fight and you're like, finally, this is where I'm happy. This is my happy place. This is just for me. One thing I want to know about, you don't have a nickname. No,
I
none of your
don't know.
coaches, no one around you has given you a nickname. But if you could choose your own nickname, what were some of the other MMA nicknames that you've loved, and what would you maybe give yourself?
I'll be honest, and I've said this before, I just don't know if I'm a nickname person. There are some people that don't have, like nicknames, and I'm just not entirely sure that I have one. And I think that a nickname is something like someone has to give you. I
Yeah.
can't just, you know what I mean? I wouldn't feel good giving myself a nickname. I feel like it's something that has to be earned. And eventually maybe you earn it. Maybe my pro debuts where I earn it. I'm just starting to establish my style. People are just starting to catch on. So hopefully like, something comes about. Like people, some nicknames are super, super cool and they work because the person has that persona, so I guess I'm still finding my identity.
You need a good origin. We're gonna develop that origin story one day, man.
Yeah, that's definitely something that like, I hope somebody, just one day it just comes to them like.
Some people just don't. I mean,
Yeah.
going and watching that Mom's Basement podcast, you got Nick Diaz. He doesn't even have a nickname at all, and it's weird, isn't it? Like, and I just thought about the other day, like, he doesn't have a nickname at all? And there's some fighters that just simply don't. But yeah, just from your answer in that podcast, I think it's kind of just cool just to have your name, as well. Like, that's pretty cool in itself. What would you say is the biggest sacrifice you've had to make as an MMA fighter?
I think a lot of people would agree with this, and I would say like financially the biggest. Like there were times where and there will be times where I can't work because I have to kind of make this full time. At one point, before I graduated, I was in college and I full time, I was working full time and I was squeezing training in, and that's not enough. That's, if you want to make this a career, it has to kind of be a priority. So, for a while I wasn't working and it was super difficult, financially. Now I have a good job that understands that I do fight, and, it's kind of super necessary right now at this point, until I turn pro, and then I can make it a priority again. But I would say financially, and, obviously your time too. Like time is a really big sacrifice because there's a lot of things that I didn't make it to, a lot of events that I didn't make it to, people I haven't seen, my family, things like that, because I'm always, I'm super busy. So you'll always, time and money are the biggest sacrifices, I would say. Mentally, like dieting and the physical sacrifices people will say, but for me, that's just part of the grind. So I wouldn't say like those are the biggest sacrifices. I would just say like outside of fighting, having to, really compartmentalize things, and that's the biggest thing.
Time and money, it's tough, but let's get out there and make you some money. You got some shirts for sale. Now we're going to get to that. We're going to get to the shirts for sale in a little bit, but first let's get a good opportunity. Right now, YouTube celebrity boxing is kind of the hot ticket item. Everyone's retiring from MMA and they want to beat up a YouTuber. If you were to call out some YouTuber or a TikToker or maybe a music artist or an influencer, who would you want to call out and beat up in a ring? For lots of money, by the way.
This one's kind of easy. I don't really keep up. I'll tell you, I don't really watch a lot of like TikTok and stuff like that. But I find this one girl so annoying. Do you know that girl, Woah Vicky?
Yeah, I do.
Oh,
yeah.
man, yeah.
Really, I just think she is so annoying, honestly.
Yeah.
Like her personality. I don't know if that's really how she is or if that's like her persona. But either way, like I really like, she's so annoying. So annoying.
That was a great call out.
Yeah, and it came to me quicker than I thought it would. Like when you initially started to ask the question, I'm like, oh no, I don't really keep up with these trends. And then I was like, wait a second, like, yeah, I've thought about it,
Oh, that's a good one. We're gonna have to cut that up and send and show that to her directly. Tiger in it, everything.
Tiger in it, just see
Yeah.
it, throw it out there, put it out
Who the fuck is this?
She looks like we could be in like the same weight class, we'll do a catch weight.
Yeah. And then you could just play yourself down. I'm like, I don't fight. What are you talking about? Like,
I'm an amateur. I'll just say, I'm an amateur.
Yeah, man. I'm not even that great.
That,
That's awesome, man. But I mean, in terms of, so I like asking this as well. So who would you say is your favorite fighter of all time? Like the GOAT. I mean, the GOAT of all GOATs.
That's a tough one. It's really like a battle between Rose Namajunas and Valentina Shevchenko for me.
Ooh, that's
It's really like I hate to place one over the other because I really think that they are just elite in terms of like well-roundedness and just being technical. I tend to favor the people that are technical. You know, you don't get to see a lot of clean form, clean striking. You know, you get to see a lot of grit and heart and, you know, things like that. People that are explosive, which is cool. Those people are also talented, but I like people who pay attention to detail, you know,
nice.
things like that.
So this is a signature question, developed by the man himself, Tim. We asked this to all fighters. So what would your signature brand be? So you've got like signature hot sauce that, Dustin Poirier's got. You've got signature whiskey that Connor's got. What would a Mariah Castro signature brand be?
That is actually really tough. I think I would get into making equipment, striking equipment. I definitely think, I just have, any training equipment. I think like I'm super particular about my equipment and like even my gis, like down to like my gis and how they fit and things like that. I would definitely get into like training equipment because I'm so particular and I'm like, I know what the people want, that's in the back of my mind. I'm thinking, I'm like, you know what, if I made gloves or if I made shin guards, like I would keep this in mind, like all the little flaws that these things have.
What do you think sucks about training gear right now, actually?
I would just say like, I'm really big on like simple things as well. So not only just like the designs, I would just say like, number one, it's too expensive. I don't understand why it's that expensive, but shin guards are a really big one for me. I just think that too, like a lot of them, they shift. So I'm like, I got to figure out how we can get these to stop, shifting, be more comfortable, things like that, be more natural. Even the dimensions of things like, I don't like bulky training gear. I think things should be as close to the dimensions of a person as possible. Even training pads, stuff like that, like leg pads that you kick. My coach and I were just talking about it. We're like, we don't see enough leg pads for calf kicks and ones that are natural that maybe like, I saw this once, maybe like a leg sleeve, right? That has a pad attached to it where where it's still the dimensions of a leg, not like this giant boxy pad that you're kicking, just stuff like that, just to make it more natural, because my coach makes us like suit up like Ninja Turtles when we spar anyway, because he doesn't want anybody to get cut, no headbutts, no accidental elbows, without pads and things like that. So
makes sense, man.
A lot of the big brands like Hayabusa and like Reebok and maybe Venom to a lesser extent kind of focus on looks first, but there must be a lot of brands out there that are functional. Like, I don't know, Fairtex or Everlast. Is there brands that you would recommend? Because you're in the gym every day. You've been in the gym for years. What brands would you recommend to someone who's in the market?
I mean, it's a little pricey, but like Fairtex for sure is my favorite brand as far as like the shin guards and the gloves. That's what I use. I think that they're super, super quality as far as like, you can have them for years. There's a lot of gloves that are nice, but they start ripping, pretty soon. If you're working out every day, you're hitting the bag with those, you're sparring with those or whatever you're doing, like eventually they will start to wear out. But Fairtex definitely, those you can break in and have for a long time.
I love it. You are so clearly a fight nerd. We're talking about as like UFC fight pad. What do you do in your spare time? Like, do you watch anime? And you're like, no, I watch Pride.
Yeah, honestly, I never caught on to the anime thing. Personally, like if that's your thing, do your thing. I just personally never got into that. I'm like, I'll just go and randomly watch fights, like even ones that I've seen before, and I'll be like, you know what, I forgot how much went on in that fight, so I have to rewatch it. And you get different perspectives sometimes when you watch it a few times. So that's also interesting to catch up on like what you missed.
what's the go-to fight? I love like a Shogun Little Nog, John Jones, Alexander Gustafsson. What's your go-to?
Um, I like I like old Nick Diaz fights. I think that's fun.
Oh,
I
yes.
do.
What's your favorite Nick Diaz fight? I gotta ask you that because we're big Nick Diaz fans, man.
If I had to pick a favorite, maybe Paul Daley.
Oh yes, yes.
That was fun. I like.
That's the best one-round fight I've ever seen in my life, man. Oh
Yeah,
my,
man. I like the
oh
competitive
my
fights,
goodness.
and I like the people that there's actually some like a little bit of beef between them. Like it's fun. You know, I'm not a person like I've never beefed with an opponent, and I don't really care to. But I think it adds like an element to the fights where they're like neck and neck, things are back and forth, and like it's like there's a lot riding on the fight, you know.
And he's like, "What, bitch?" And like, Paul Daley was actually cracking him, man. And he's just like,
Yes.
"What, bitch? What, bitch?" And it's
Yeah.
almost like a strategy. He tired him out, and then he just fucked him up, man. Like that was, it was a bit of an early stoppage, but you know, it is what it is. Like,
I always loved Nick Diaz. I think it's like he's just funny. Like he's a funny guy. Like when he fought GSP, he was like completely he was getting dominated, and then in the corner, he's like, win or lose, he hits like a bitch. Like, you know, like like that's just it's so funny. Like sometimes you relate to that. Like I've been in the corner, like, and you know, your corner's like instructing you, and I'm like, man, those leg kicks didn't hurt. Like you gotta let them know. Like that sometimes you have those Diaz moments where you're like, man, like don't get it confused. Like those didn't hurt.
I love that. What a great fighter to look up to, and great fight there. We had it's funny because we in the like America and the UK, we're so used to trash talk because we do it all the time. We were like in elementary school playing tag and we're trash talking each other. It's something you get used to. And I think a lot of fighters don't know that. So we spoke to Marius Staramskis, one of Nick Diaz's opponents from Strikeforce. And he was like, Nick made me so mad. And he said, it's been 10 years. And I realized Nick never, he was not mad at me at all. He was faking the whole time. And I was like, yeah, Marius, you got it, man. So are you a big trash talker? How do you handle trash talk? Is that something you're into?
I haven't like trash talked. I will taunt a little bit. There are times, and I don't like go in there like, oh, I'm gonna taunt or like whatever. It's just something that I'm a playful person. So like when I get out of the way of things, you know, or I'm moving my head and you're missing, I'm gonna put my hands down and smile at you, or I'm just, you know, I'm just like just silly little playful things. Nothing disrespectful. I'm not a disrespectful person. That's just something like, you know, even leading up to the fight when you meet your opponent at weigh-ins and things like that, I'm not going to be like all in your face, and I'm not getting paid to do this. Like as far as, you know, put on a, you know, a persona and like act like, you know, I'm mad at you. I don't know you. You know, at the end of the day, you're just another person in my way. So I don't invest in like trash talk, but during the fight, I do have moments where I will be animated. And I'll say like a thing or two, but it's not like I go in, you know, like that's what I want to do. It's just like, you know, I'll just, you know, they miss and I'll be like, ooh, that was close. Like I'll just say like little silly shit, you know, stuff like that.
I absolutely love it. This is absolutely awesome stuff. We're going to do a quick rundown and you'll get the last word here. We want to thank our guest, Mariah Castro, the Flex Fighting Amateur Strawweight Champion of the world. We are the Calf Kick Sports Podcast. My name is Tim Wheaton. You can find more Tim Wheaton MMA on Instagram and Twitter. He is Ash. You can find more at ashmma.cks on Instagram. Now, Mariah, last word here. Where can the people find more of you? Where can we see you next? And I'll put all the links for everything down below, but talk us out of here.
All right. You can find me on Instagram at Mariah Castro MMA. Pretty easy to find me there. And then I have some fights on YouTube if you want to check that out. I also have 3 fights with Flex Fight Series. If you want to check that out as well, their page is at Flex Fight Series. I hope that you'll, you know, see me pretty soon if I get this confirmation, so I could do my first title defense. I just want to quickly thank Mom's Basement MMA. My sponsors, Durante PT and Soreto Sports Chiropractic. I appreciate you all. And thank you too for reaching out to me and having me on the show. Super, super, super thankful. I really enjoyed talking to you guys today.
so much. Hey, we should be thanking you, man.
No, please.
1 second here. Sorry. That was MMA.ck asks, make sure to check him out. Mariah Castro, I'm going to put the links for everything down below, including where they can find the shop and everything for you like that. But one last question, when are you hoping to get your next fight in?
Well, like I said, I was really, really hoping for March. I really liked March. Flex Fight Series has pretty much one card every single month for 2022. They're like really, really active. So they're kind of aiming more for April for this one girl. I guess, you know, she hasn't fought at 15 in a while, so she might have needed a little extra time to get down to 15 because it's a title fight. So, you know, there's no catch weight.
Awesome stuff. Thank you so much for your time.
All right. Thank you.